Welcome to Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies podcast, a program of the Missouri Boot Hill Regional Consortium. I'm Valda Ford, a registered nurse and public health expert, and your host. It is our joy and our passion to try to make sure that all babies have a chance to make it to their first birthday and all mothers be there to see it. Unfortunately, we have such problems with high infant and maternal mortality in the United States, but we want to do everything we can to make that better. One of the main challenges we have is making sure that mothers-to-be know how to take care of themselves. And a really important part of that can be learning how not to worry. If there was a way to transform worry into calm, wouldn't you want to know about it? There is. And Denise Marek, internationally known as the worry management expert and the creator of the CALM methodology for worry-free living. As a lecturer, consultant, and writer, Denise empowers individuals around the globe to stress less, overcome fears, and take risks essential for personal and professional success. In her best-selling book, CALM, a proven 4-step process designed specifically for women who worry, Denise taught thousands of women around the globe how to transform worry into inner peace. Using the CALM process, Denise is back with a book tailored specifically for mothers. Today, she will provide strategies for parents to reduce worry so their parenting experience will feel happier, more present, and less stressed. Welcome, Denise.
Thank you so much for having me, Valda.
Oh, it is such a pleasure. I have had the good fortune of knowing about you, knowing what you do, and benefiting from your CALM method.
That's wonderful.
So you have been working with people around the globe, and how has this manifested? How did you come to speak about this?
Well, when I was younger, I used to worry about everything under the sun. I remember even being 12 years old. I couldn't sleep on Sunday nights, and I'd go to my mom in the living room crying and saying, I'm so worried. And she'd say, oh, Denise, if there was nothing in the world to worry about, you would find something. And it was true. I would lie there with all of those what if thoughts swirling around in my mind. And then when I was in my 20s, I had a job working as a seminar trainer for an international company based in Colorado. And I was their Canadian trainer, training all the way from Vancouver to Newfoundland. And I was teaching on their topics, things like self-esteem for women, dealing with difficult people, conflict and confrontation. And after learning this material and teaching it to others for a year and a half, one day I realized I wasn't worrying anymore. For the first time in my life, the worries were gone. And I thought, wait a minute, if the world's biggest worrier can stop worrying, there's hope for everyone. So I started really paying attention to the way I was thinking differently. I started studying worry, and then I put together this CALM process so that other people could learn how to stop worrying. And it works. I love it. It's so simple and it works.
Well, that is something, because I know some people who are in a chronic state of worry, anxiety, everything that is terrible is about to befall them. Everything that they try to do will not succeed. Everyone that they try to befriend will reject them. It is especially good to know in my field of infant mortality and maternal mortality reduction to talk to people who are moms or who are going to be moms about how to worry less in 4 simple steps. So tell me about how you brought this around to motherhood.
Well, my daughters recently had children of their own. So I have 3 grandsons now that were all born during the COVID times. So I have an 11-month-old grandson, a 1-year-old grandson, and a 2-year-old grandson. And I really wanted something to help them to cope with all of the stresses that motherhood brings with them. And it's really fun to be able to share that with my daughters because thankfully, they'll call me up when they're worried and they'll say, Mom, what do you think about this? Or do you think that this rash is something serious? And then I can use a simple strategy. So for instance, one of the strategies under the first step, the challenge or assumptions, is to ask yourself, what else could it be? So I said to her, ask yourself, what else could it be? But this time find a more positive assumption. And she said, how come you never told me that before? That's really good. And I said, I did tell you that before, but now she's ready to hear it. And I think that's the key, Valda, because you were mentioning when you were talking to me earlier about the people who are catastrophizing and think, why does nobody like me? And why is this? And why is that? We have to be in the space where we're ready and want to learn how to manage our own worries and anxieties, because as much as we want those people we love to stop worrying, we can't force it on them. But when you're ready, these strategies will help.
Yes, I know that there are people who have been, they're just professional hand wringers. That's all that they do. But it's such a great thing to think how to deflect that and just get them to maybe ratchet down a little bit and think, what else could it be? Or maybe what is the worst that it could be? Or maybe no, maybe that's not a good strategy.
They're already going there.
They're already there. So you're bringing them away from the worst. And as a nurse, wow, that is something I can definitely use when someone is worried, when they're thinking, oh, and just as a side note, I grew up around a few hypochondriacs. So who would always be like, oh, there's a pimple. Is it cancer? There's a scratch.
What else could it be?
Exactly. It's a pimple. It's acne. Oh, I love that though. So I love the idea that one, they have you there. Nothing could be better than to have a supportive mother when you are pregnant or after you become a mom who can just say, I'm here. And some of the women that I work with really don't have good resources. They don't have good family resources. They don't have friends. Sometimes they relocated to an area where they thought it was for a job and moved away from family. And now they really don't have anyone. But at MBRC, we try to work with people either through case management or other programs. And this podcast is just for helping those most vulnerable know how to do better. So let's talk about your steps. You're saying that there's a simple process when you suffer from chronic worry about money, about family, about your kids, happiness, safety, or anything in between. So your calm process is to C, challenge negative assumptions, A, act on your worry, L, let go, M, master your mind. I'll let you get more in depth in those, but how, when you're tailoring this specifically for mothers, how are you making this work? And I know your book is coming out that will have great stories, exercises to help.
Yeah, mothers have definitely unique needs in that in the moment you become pregnant, things change in the blink of an eye. Everything changes in that one moment. And then as soon as your baby's born, wow, we can be, we're certainly, our whole life changes. I remember when my first child was born. First of all, my mom said to me when I told her I was pregnant, she said, oh, now you'll never have a worry-free day the rest of your life. And I thought, just like some of the pregnant women listening now, that I thought, oh no, you're wrong. I know that's not true. I'm only worried now because I can't see that my child's healthy. But once my baby's born, then I won't have to worry anymore. But then of course, what happened is then you start finding a whole lot of other things to worry about. So what I've done is I've tailored this calm process for those specific concerns that moms have, because it's really important. I've heard this wonderful quote that says, when our little ones are overwhelmed with big emotions, it's our job to share our calm, not join their chaos. And the challenge is we can only share what we ourselves have. So what I'd like to be for those women out there who may not have that motherly support, I'm a grandma, I'd like to offer that through this book in terms of giving that motherly advice that helps you to stress less. Because, Valda, I'm recently working on a research paper about perfectionism when it comes to parenting. And you might already know about this. It's something I think as recent as 2019 that they're showing this perfectionism in parenting is leading to parental burnout. And that might not seem like a big deal, but parental burnout is actually a psychological issue that they're saying can cause moms to feel distance, emotionally distanced from their child. They don't get the enjoyment out of the parenting experience, and they're just completely overwhelmed with their duties. And if some people are feeling that right now, they're definitely not alone. The estimates are showing that worldwide, so not just in the United States, not just in Canada, but around the world, they're estimating 5% of parents are feeling this parental burnout. And that's 1 in 20. We all know 1 in 20 people who are parents. So it's really important to recognize when that's happening to you, to know you're not alone, to know that there's nothing wrong with you when you're feeling this way. When you're feeling stressed, it's not your fault at all. It's just something that we go through as parents, especially in this difficult time and in this social media age where we're comparing ourselves with other people and thinking, or other moms and thinking, oh, well, I'm not cooking that fancy gourmet dinner. I'm exhausted and I'm throwing in a frozen pizza. I'm a terrible person. No, you're not. You're doing the best for your child. You're doing the best for you. And that's what's important, is to do your best. Perfectionism, no.
Oh, yeah, absolutely not. I have seen so many people end up in the hospital with that stress and when I was teaching, especially, students may be the worst, who are just feeling like, oh, I didn't make that 4.0 or that A or whatever the scale happens to be. And it's like, do you know when you graduate, no one is going to care. They're going to care that you finished. They're not going to care that you were perfect, because perfect doesn't necessarily make the perfect employee later on down the road. So for motherhood, I know worry is important for women who may be about to be mothers or who have just become mothers in a certain way, right? So we have a continuum where you look up and you say, oh, especially about women, oh, I'm feeling pain. And someone will say, yeah, it's fine for you to feel pain. You just had a baby. Of course you're feeling pain. But then there's that point where you say, it's okay to reach out to ask the question, my pain feels like this. On a scale of 1 to 10, it feels like a 2. Okay, that's fine. That's normal. But if it's feeling like a 9 or a 10, that means you need some assistance, you need some intervention. How do you help women specifically navigate when they should be okay and when they should reach out?
Well, I love that you are giving that continuum. I think that scaling system is really important, to ask yourself, how am I feeling on a scale of 1 to 10? And I don't think that you have to be at a 10 or say that you have to be at a 6 to reach out for help. I think learning to trust yourself and learning to advocate for yourself, if you don't have somebody to advocate for you, to say, listen, I really believe that something is going on and I need you to take this seriously, to look into this. And if you're tired, or if you just need a break, call someone if you can. If you're thinking, well, I don't have anybody that I could pay to babysit my children, do you have a friend that you could sort of barter services to say, could we help each other by taking care of each other's child and allowing myself to have that break that I need? Because as moms, we all do need those important breaks. And I just thought of something when we were talking about that scaling. Another way the first step in the calm process is the C. So another way to challenge your assumptions is to use a scale of 1 to 10. And when you're worrying about something and all those what if questions are happening, ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is it that what I'm worried about is going to happen? Because oftentimes we have the question wrong. We don't ask ourselves, how probable is it? We ask ourselves, how possible is it that what I'm worried about is going to happen? And unfortunately, as we know, anything is possible. So
Mhm.
when we think about the unlimited possibilities of what could go wrong, that's when all of that worry sets in. So a little simple shift in the question from possibility to probability sometimes is enough to regain your perspective and help calm you down.
Well, I love that. I love that. I used to tell my students, and I definitely tell women now who are in that process of going to motherhood or just new mothers. So think about it this way. Say if it's about finances or a personal relationship, especially that difficult time with your significant other when you're all tired and cranky and, diapers and bottles or breast. How bad will it be 5 days from now? How
Mm.
bad will it be 5 weeks from now? Will you be looking back on this? And with my students, I used to say, okay, so you're in a panic mode, you're up here on the roof, I'm trying to talk you down. Do you think you'll feel this way 5 hours from now? Well, why don't you come back to me in 5 hours and tell me if you feel the same?
That's
How do you think
great.
you'll feel 5 days from now? When you come to class next week, tell me how you feel right now. And how will this look 5 weeks from now? I know I laugh all the time about starting new things and thinking, oh, I'm so stressed. I don't know what to do. Is this business going to fail? And then I say, next year, I'll be looking back and laughing at this.
That's such good advice. Oh my goodness. Here's another one. And this is under the M of the master your mind. And I even find this helpful now. So what I'll go back a little bit before I get to this part in the master your mind, which is what we're going to talk about is to end those what if thinking, 3 cures for what if thinking. But I forget where I was going to go with the beforehand. So let's just go into the, the part on master your mind. So when oh, I know what I was going to say now, and it's really important. Not all worry is bad. This is important to understand. Sometimes worry is serving you. So if you're thinking, what if that pain I have is something serious? Well, then that's serving you to go to the doctor. If you're thinking, oh no, what if I don't have enough money to pay my bills? Well, that worry might be prompting you to sit down and say, okay, so what is my financial situation right now? Pull out all of your bills and say, what do I actually owe? How much asset do I actually have, if any? And it's sometimes a really scary thing to do because we don't want to look at it. We want to think, okay, I'm just going to be an ostrich, put my head in the sand and hope it just kind of goes away on its own. But if you're really worrying about finances, just sit down and take action to control the things you can. So what I'm saying is sometimes worry can serve you to get you moving forward and in the right direction. Now, when you're lying in bed though, and tossing and turning, and all of those what ifs are just keeping you up at night, you can calm those what if thoughts by asking yourself, okay, what is? So what that's doing is getting you into the present. You're saying, what is happening right now? Right now, I'm okay. I am safe at home. I am in my bed. I might be having a hard time sleeping right now, but right now in this moment, I'm okay. Because most of the time when we're worrying, we're thinking about all of the things that might go wrong in the future. They're not actually happening right now. If they were happening now, you'd probably already be into action mode. But worry is when you're just thinking about things that could go wrong. So remind yourself, what is right now? I'm safe. And that does a lot to help you feel better, to acknowledge that to yourself. And then the next cure to move on to is ask yourself, okay, so this thing that I'm worried about, will it matter a year from now? So maybe you feel as though somebody has judged you for your situation that you're in, or somebody's judging your parenting skills, or somebody's said something that hurt your feelings. And will that matter a year from now? Sometimes the answer is no. A lot of times we worry about things that are really insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Just like you were saying with the, how will you feel 5 hours from now, five days from now, 5 weeks from now. So that's a really important one. And then if you think, well, yes, if this happens, if what I'm worried about happens, it will matter a year from now. Well, the third thing is to affirm to yourself, I will handle it. If you think about everything in your life that you've already handled, I mean, all of those cards that have been thrown at you, I'm not even necessarily saying that you handled them well or without tears or saying some things you wish you could take back, but you handled them and here you are today, Good job, Mama Bear. So what I'm saying is when you remind yourself of that and you start to build your belief in your ability to handle whatever happens, worry really starts to dissipate. In fact, I've created something that's a freebie that people who are listening can just go to this website and download. You don't even have to enter an email address or a name. It's not to collect anything. It's just to give it away. If you go to calmformomsbook.com, I have a free coloring page. I'll just show you that now. It's a little air balloon. And at the top, it says, I'm capable of handling it. And my child is too. So you can color it by yourself. As an adult coloring page, you can have a child color it with you and hang it up to remind you and your child that whatever happens, you're capable of handling it.
Oh, I love that. I love it because just the process of going to the website, downloading that page, that's an action. Sitting there and actually going through it focuses you and takes you away from the moment. I know when I get like a song stuck in my head, I'm like, oh, will the song please go away? I have consciously decided now to find another song that I want to hear. And then I will put it on a loop and I will listen to it. It doesn't get stuck in my head because that other one is fixed to something negative, but this one is a positive one. So just the act of doing it really takes that other thing out of my head.
Yes. And sometimes we just need to interrupt our thoughts like that when those negative thoughts are looping. I mean, I don't know if you've heard about this, but in Canada, there's a lot of talk about toxic positivity. Have you heard that discussion on toxic positivity?
I have a little. Yeah, say more.
I think it's just sort of a buzzword for people who wanted to garner attention,
Yeah.
but there is toxic positivity is basically saying everything's okay when everything is not okay. And people have a tendency to just say, I'm fine when they're not fine because everyone else is fine. So why should I say that I'm feeling depressed or anxious or worried or stressed? And it's important to validate your feelings and really, it's okay to feel the way you're feeling. You don't have to be happy all the time. In fact, I think there's a thing called the happiness myth that says we're supposed to be happy and that's what we're striving for. But happiness is just a result of happenings. I think a better thing to strive for is feeling more at peace. Sometimes you're going to feel happy and sometimes you're going to feel sad, but you can feel peace in the sadness. You can feel peace in the chaos. So happiness is just an emotion like all of the other emotions. And so in terms of the toxic positivity, basically you just want to validate your feelings. However, there has been shown with neuroscience where they hook our minds up to electrodes of all sorts. And when you start focusing on your strengths, it actually starts rewiring and lighting up the brain. So be careful not to dwell on the things that are upsetting you and to say, you know what really am I thankful for? I'll tell you, I did go through a period in 2017 of what I would consider pretty severe depression. And I met with the pastor of my church and he said, how are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 10? And I burst into tears and I said, I'm at a 1. And he was a good friend of mine. Unfortunately, he passed away last year, but he said to me, I would have given you at least a 4. And just in that moment of acknowledging how I was feeling and then him lightening the mood, not dismissing how I was feeling, but he lightened the mood. And I knew I had this friend who was going to help me. By finally admitting it, I was beginning to take the steps forward to coming out of that dark place that I was in, where I actually felt hopeless. And then the hope started to return. And it's really, we need to sort of break out of where we are. And sometimes we can't do it by ourselves. Sometimes we need to talk to a friend who is more positive, or a counselor or a therapist or a teacher, someone that we can really depend on to really share our story and help us begin to find the strengths within ourselves. Some of us have had those past experiences that really have beaten us down, where we don't feel valuable, we don't feel worthy, we don't feel good enough. And it just impacts us. It impacts our belief systems in such a way that we just think that is so true about ourselves. But the reality is that's not the truth. In one of the parts in the book where I talk about challenging your assumptions, I ask people to say, is it true? Is it a fact? So when you're believing those things about yourself and you're saying, I'm not good enough, say, wait a minute, is that the truth? No, the truth is we all have immense value and incredible worth. And this is true no matter what you have done in the past, what you've experienced in the past, what someone else has said about you in the past. You have immense value and incredible worth. And if you don't know that, I feel like I'm speaking to someone right now. If you don't know it, I'm guaranteeing you, even if I haven't met you, it's true. You have value, you are lovable, you are worthy.
I know that's so important, especially when you're looking at women who are vulnerable, whether it's because of finances, of loneliness, these days with all the COVID that won't go away as it's rearing up again. But the thing is that all those things you beat yourself up over, especially body dysmorphia. I'm not perfect. My breasts aren't high enough. Now I have stripes on my belly. And I say to everyone, look, those are your mama tiger stripes. You earned every one of them. And people who love you are going to love you regardless. And if we could get away from this super cosmeticized thing of being perfect or adding some hips or minusing some breasts or something, where you're sitting there all day long looking at people who look perfect. A lot of times those are filters and other mechanics to change that around. But yes, I love that fact that you're saying, yes, you're valuable, you're worth it, and whatever it is you're going through will get better. Or you will learn how to deal with it, adjust around it, as you were saying, going into that action step where you say, what is, and then what can be done about it. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are when we're talking about the 4 steps, they sort of don't work necessarily in order. When you're worrying, you can put them sort of in any order that works best for you. So sometimes you might be worrying and say, okay, challenge your assumptions. I'm not really making an assumption right now. Okay, so A, act to control the controllable. What actions can I take? And what I always recommend is if you're worrying about something that is prompting you to take action, don't just try to figure it out in your head. It's so overwhelming inside your brain. Grab a piece of paper and write it down right at the top of the page. What am I worrying about? And then you can brainstorm possible actions. And what I say is don't limit yourself, because sometimes you might not write something on a page thinking, well, I don't have the financial ability to take that action, or I don't know how or where to start, or I'm never going to be able to do that. No, this is just a brainstorming. You can write down anything on that piece of paper that you want, because then what you'll be amazed at, you'll start to see, oh, I know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And then you break that down even further. Okay, so to take this step, what actions do I need to take? And then you will need to muster up courage, because a lot of the reason people don't take action is the fear and the worry then stops them. So you will have to muster up that courage, but it will definitely be worth it.
Yes, I love that no matter the method, it doesn't have to be in order.
Yes.
So that whole thing about mastering your mind is all through the process. You are doing that. You're setting yourself up for it, at least, so that in the end, you're saying, I am in control of these thoughts. I am in control of what happens next. I am worthy. I am wonderful. All of those things, that self-talk. I've been seeing a commercial lately where this woman says, I've come to return my negative self-thoughts.
I love it. I haven't seen that.
And the person who's at the return desk says, oh, there are plenty of people who are coming to do that right now. Do you want to return all of them, or do you have some positive thoughts in there you want to keep?
I'm going to have to search for that.
Oh, it's beautiful. I'll send you a link to it if I can find it. But the thing is that there's someone who's saying, yep, that is so normalized now that you're just one of the many and you don't have to think about it so much. It was just something so simple to say, yeah, negative self-talk, you can put that over there, right there. We'll take that from you. And that was beautiful, just to have someone, a stranger, acknowledge, as you said, that everything is not beautiful, but you don't have to carry that burden by yourself.
Yes, I love that. There's so many different triggers that come along with parenting, even beyond the self-talk. So for instance, one of the triggers I know for my own daughters who have the kids is the noise trigger. Anything now, because when you're already stressed out to that certain level, then somebody shuts the door too loud and it kind of just shatters it right into your body. And so I address that in the book as well, talking about how to reduce noise triggers. Sometimes we can't reduce all the noise triggers. Maybe somebody's outside your window chopping down a tree. But there are some things we can do if we're feeling overwhelmed by sound, which is turning down even our own volume. So we could start talking quieter throughout the day, or turning down the radio, turning down the noise that we can control, especially when you're feeling overloaded like that, because it's in those moments where we're feeling those overloads that it can be very difficult to change that thinking. We were talking about mastering your mind. So it's important to do that self-care so that you have the capacity and the mental strength to then make those changes.
Yeah. And a very important part is using some physical things to help you with the stress. For me, there's sometimes when I'm trying to get a grant finished, or trying to write a paper, or about to give a speech that someone just asked me to do, now it's going to be tomorrow. I go for a walk. I walk for, it can just be 10 minutes, but I will take a brisk walk that will break up whatever I was doing. I intentionally pay attention to the leaves and the color of the clouds and just the size of things around me, a squirrel running up and down a tree. And that just brings me down. And physical activity is so important for mothers to be, and mothers, because they're usually like, oh, I got to do this, or maybe they're afraid that they shouldn't be exercising because they're pregnant. There were people who were exercising before, they should continue. New moms finding the time, maybe it is simply a walk around the house. It might not even have 10 minutes, but you can walk around the house, or you could walk to another room and close the door for a minute, put up the baby monitor so you're not worrying, or enlist the aid of people who love you. And sometimes we don't recognize how much love is out there for us. We're worried even that we're not lovable.
And even when we were talking about perfectionism, we might think, if I was a good mom, see, these are all the misconceptions. These are the myths. If I was a good mom, I wouldn't have to ask for help. If I was a good mom, I'd be capable of doing it all. But no, there's not one person who's capable of doing everything all by themselves. And we were meant to be in community. So reaching out to someone is showing strength. So you can look at it in a different way. It's not a weakness to ask for help. It's a strength to be able to say, hey, you know what? I need help. And then also offer help when someone else asks, because that's one of the ways that we build the serotonin, and we feel more peaceful and blissful by giving back to others. So it's sort of like the one thing that I said in my book, it's like a pyramid scheme, except for brain chemicals. When we give to other people, because it does build our own happiness as well.
Wow, this is so amazing. And of course, we could talk about it all day, but we are limited. So I want to make absolutely sure that there are ways for people who are listening. I know you gave a link to get the page, but how can they get to you, follow you, social media, otherwise? Because I know there are those who are going to want to know more. And I know that you're really good about putting good information out there. So how can they find you?
So you can find me at denisemarek.com, or on my social media on Instagram at thedenisemarek.com, or Com for Moms book. And yeah, the website also for the book, if they're interested in that, is comformomsbook.com. And if you scroll down, there's a link to a variety of different places where you can access the book, and maybe even it'll be in libraries in your area too, so you could check that out.
Denise, thank you so much. When you're talking about how to help moms be calm, whoa, we should all have had that as a standard operating procedure, a course that was necessary for all people who may be mothers or mother-like figures coming into the world. Thank you so much for taking the time to look at what was going on in your own family life, and then offering it out to those who might not have the same opportunities.
Oh, thank you for inviting me today.
It's my pleasure. So take care. And for those of you who are out there, please stay tuned to our next episode of Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies, a program of MBRC. Bye-bye now.